This conference will now be recorded.
It's green now.
Katie Boskins, Claudine Burns,
Here.
Chris Egan. Here. Melinda Plew,
Good morning, I'm here.
and Marquita Robinson. Marquita? Katie Boskin, have you joined?
Good morning. I'm here. I think I was GoTo was having an update, and it was the audio was challenging.
Well, thank you for joining.
Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate it. So moving on, please take a moment to review the agenda. Does anyone have a actual potential or the appearance of a conflict of interest in any of these matters? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. You'll see an evaluation of Eric Nesbitt's statement of economic interest in your materials. It includes my evaluation of economic interest as well. And Eric is my designee as my chief of staff to the extent that I am ever absent. So any questions or concerns on those, please raise them now. Moving on, we'll go to approval of minutes. So the minutes from the November 7th, 2024 meeting are in your materials. Are there any questions or concerns on those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 2024.
So moved. This is Katie Boskin.
I will take you as a second, Ms. Boskin, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Melinda, I'll second.
All right, thank you. Let's please call the roll.
Treasurer Briner,
Aye.
Claudine Burns,
Aye.
Melinda Blue,
Aye.
Marquita Robinson.
All right, so the motion passes, minutes are approved. Moving on to the administrative update, over to Jeff Hancock.
Great, thank you. Included in your materials is a letter that we provide annually to the General Assembly. It's one of our annual requirements. It provides an update to the Assembly of what had occurred in the program for the prior year. We sent that out on January the 21st. And you have that there in your materials. Are there any questions or comments regarding that update to the General Assembly? Hearing none. The next item I wanted to mention, and this is something that we're really I'm excited about, and it's in regards to the Medicaid a payback provision. This is something that we've been looking at for a number of years. And as a result of when we're out in the public meeting with folks and you're giving information, a lot of the feedback we get is people are hesitant to open up an ABLE account if the eligible individual is on Medicaid, because at the death of that individual, Medicaid can file a claim against the ABLE account, and you basically take what is owed, and oftentimes that takes the entire account. So a lot of people are very hesitant to open up ABLE accounts, again, if they're eligible and on Medicaid. So working with Sam, we worked with our partners at DHHS, talked with them about what we were looking to do. And part of the reason is there's currently about 20 states that have already eliminated the Medicaid payback provision directly against an ABLE account. We have two of our neighboring states, Tennessee and Virginia, that have already done so. And there's 6 states within our alliance that accept accounts from all U.S. residents that have done so. So we felt like to be on par and to try to remove the obstacle from people wanting to open up an ABLE account. We have submitted a technical correction bill that would go into this first long session that would take the Medicaid payback provision out of the ABLE legislation. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to that being passed. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions for anyone in regards to the Medicaid payback provision and the elimination of that from the ABLE a statute.
Jeff, this is Melinda. I just want to say how deeply grateful as a family member that this would impact, that this is something that we've talked about for years, and it's been a bit of a mystery if that could happen, but the fear of it possibly happening does prevent many families from opening an account. So I think this is tremendous, and any advocacy that may be needed, in speaking with anybody at the General Assembly, you can count on me or our organization to help.
Great. Thank you, Melinda. That is, certainly helpful. But I don't know that we're going to have any, at least not any opposition from our partners at DHHS. They have agreed not to oppose this, but certainly if we need some, more support in the General Assembly, we'll be happy to call on you and your organization.
Jeff, this is Katie. I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer.
No, go ahead.
I was wondering if you could give us the bill number for tracking purposes, and then give us a sense of what you expect in terms. I think today is crossover, so I'm assuming you're tracking for crossover for the long session.
The bill passed the House several weeks ago, and it's been sitting in the Senate ready. It's in the Department of State Treasurer Technical Corrections Bill. We'll look up the number and give it to you in just a moment. Unless you've got it handy, Jeff.
I don't have the handy, Sam. Sorry. Did you
Thanks
get
so
that,
much.
Katie?
Yep, I got that. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe that passed the House unanimously. So, in good shape. I commend the efforts to get this done. I also value our partners at DHHS and not opposing it. I think the total collections that they've made under this provision historically are.
So to date, it's been a little less than $40,000. So it's not a lot of money.
Right.
Again, when you look at our average account balance is now around the $12,000. It's not a lot of money, so it's not like it's going to
Right.
have a large impact on them.
Right,
So-
which I think allows them to feel even better about helping here.
Right.
We've had a lot of great growth in this program, so anything we can do to ensure that it continues to grow, and this is one of those we obviously want to do. House Bill 476 is the number.
476. Okay. And to double down on what Melinda said, it may not be a lot of money, but it is fear inducing.
Oh, yeah.
And so anybody that has dealt with Medicaid recovery and estates knows how they swoop in at the last minute, and it can be very upsetting and traumatizing, I guess, for the family members who have also just lost someone. So I think I'm very enthusiastic about that change.
No, absolutely. I was just trying to explain how we can feel good that DHHS is not going to oppose this because it doesn't change anything for them really either. Okay.
That's all I have, unless there's any other questions or comments.
Okay. Hearing none, over to Christy for the communications and marketing update.
Yeah, so we're kind of entering the busy season for NC-ABLE. We have a lot of events coming up, a lot of webinars. I shared at the last meeting that we actually implemented an online survey for people to take, and I'm going to share this at every board meeting that we have because I do think it's so interesting that we do have over 50% of individuals that are opening accounts on their own, and then about 44% that are opening on behalf of someone else. I think that's a very interesting result here. The other is that we're about split in half between those that have a written diagnosis and those that are actually eligible to receive SSI and SSDI. And the final thing that I think is interesting is the 10% that are participating in their company's 401k plan. We continue to educate around this because you can still do that and contribute the maximum $19,000 a year. Of course, if you're not participating, you can contribute more through the Able to Work Act. But I love this survey. I love what it tells about the people that are coming to the NC-ABLE program. It really informs a lot about our participants. On the next slide, there are some events that we've attended. This, of course, spans September 1st through March 31st. And, we are a small but mighty team, and we get a lot done. And I think everybody in this room is a part of that. And that includes the board members and other community advocates that give us information on ways that we can participate at the local level, and identify those key opportunities where we can continue to reach potential participants. On the next slide, I have some information about ncable.org. Over this same time period, September 1st to March 31st, we actually saw a 38% increase in our web visits, and a definite increase from all over North Carolina as well as outside of North Carolina. And on the next slide, I have a little bit about our upcoming goals. We're going to increase awareness, continue to do that, increase enrollments, and increase the assets in each account for each participant. And we'll do this by increasing participation in events and webinars, going ahead and relaunching our in-house webinars so that people can learn to be the best able account holder they can be. We're going to expand awareness in the corporate sector, which we kicked off with Krispy Kreme, and we're going to hit those benefit channels in those in that corporate sector. We're going to engage in localized, specialized programs. And that means like the town of Wake Forest or the city of Raleigh, the Parks and Rec departments. They all have expanded their specialized programs, and it's a great way to reach into that local area. And we've already started to do that from Goldsboro to Cary, and those have been very successful. And the corporate sector, I just put it on there again because it's so important. No, I had doubled it up. But I just think it's a really great opportunity. We have a lot of very large companies that are dedicated to inclusion in the workplace. And we have that right here in our backyard and across North Carolina. So I think that's a great way to grow the program. And that's all I have for now. If anybody has any questions.
But I would just like to add on to that. One of the things we're going to be focused on this year is looking at in terms of increasing awareness, other channels. As you all know, starting next year on the 1st, the age of onset goes up from 26 to 46. So there will be some new audiences that will be opened up to the program, especially military who are coming back from conflict, who may have suffered some type of injury. So we'll be also looking for some other avenues and audiences to raise that awareness with as a result of that new age adjustment.
And we've started that a little bit by going into Goldsboro and that local community. And so, yeah, that's a huge opportunity.
We had discussions with other companies about a Krispy Kreme-like program as well.
We're not in direct communication with anybody yet, but we have a list. And Krispy Kreme, their world director of benefits, he is very connected in the North Carolina benefits community because everybody loves donuts.
Sure.
But he has offered to introduce us to all of those people that have that those avenues of reaching their staff. So I think that's amazing.
Great. Other questions? Okay. Over to the census team for the program manager administrative updates.
All right, thank you, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for having me. I apologize that I had some technical difficulties getting on at the beginning. For anyone who I haven't met, I'm Kimberly Shockley. I work for Census, the program manager, and I'm the relationship manager for the National Able Alliance. Just as an overview before I get into the presentation, I wanted everyone to know that since we last met, we have added a money market option to our investments. So we now have 7 investments plus a checking account for people to choose from. As North Carolina is on the entity dashboard, we feel that money market option is very helpful to that group, especially where a checking account isn't available. And now we have a option that is the most conservative for groups that are looking to simply protect the assets in many cases of those they care for. We've also put out a new program description. Instead of having something out there that has multiple supplements, every few years we fully update the program description, and that was recently sent out for all states in the National ABLE Alliance. And thirdly, I just wanted to let you know that we recently had our due diligence. So we meet monthly with the full National ABLE Alliance, quarterly to do a larger overview. And this annual due diligence we did in April, we went over all assets of the relationship, and just to pull out something that we are really looking to move forward with as your record keeper is with our client services team. This year, we worked on finishing a lot of projects, and moving forward, what we're looking to do is make sure that our users are getting the best client experience they can. Most of our users have a pretty fluid process. This is a unique group. It's often a longer phone call or more giving a description and an understanding of the program that's involved. But a majority of the transactions are taken care of within that first touch. But we're seeing where if it doesn't get taken care of in that first touch, we're noticing that there's a disconnect and often a long wait. So just to let you know, the North Carolina team is a huge part of a weekly group. And one thing we're working on is auditing that full department. We've already added some people and a layer of management to look at our processes and see where things aren't going the way we would want them to for that client experience. So just wanted to let you know some details of what we've done since we've last met. And now I can go into some of the data. If you wouldn't mind going to slide 3. Thank you. So as you can see, since the beginning of Q1 to the end of 2024 to the end of Q1 2025, there's been over $7 million added to the plan. That's an increase of about 34%. So we're definitely seeing positive growth, not just from new account owners and deposits, but this year we've had a significant amount of market growth. So we're currently at $34,159,212 as of the end of March. Next slide. For the contributions by month, we're seeing pretty much the same thing year over year as we saw last year. December and January are always big months for those people who are trying to hit their maximums. For 2024, the maximum allowed for someone who isn't employed is $18,000. That increased to $19,000 for 2025. And so, like I said, sometimes families are looking to make sure that they hit those maximums either at the end of or the beginning of the calendar year. Also seeing that this March, while sticking with the trend, each month, the first quarter has been a little higher than the year before. So that's a trend we like to see. And this is not market growth. This is just contributions to the account. Moving on to contributions by type on the next slide. So as you can see, these are the different ways that you can contribute to your ABLE account. What we see as the largest, and this is true in most plans, is an EBT contribution. So that's a regular contribution, often coming from a checking account outside of the ABLE program or some sort of account outside the ABLE program. That's 52% of the contributions. The next closest at 25% is contributions by check. You don't see a lot of rollover contributions into or out of these plans, but about 7% of the contributions are from rollovers.
The growth here is largely participant growth, right? Not average check per participant growth.
Nope, the average amounts aren't moving that much. We're slowly creeping up for average amounts and average balances, but yes, it's mostly an increase in the number of contributions that we're seeing. I don't have exact numbers, but just to give you Some detail, last March, your average balance, which kind of speaks to this, is about $12,100. As of this March, it's $13,102. So looking at that, it's a little bit of both. We're seeing more contributors, which is always good. And then we're also seeing that they're kind of not using these possibly as transactionally, and the account balances are growing overall. So good to see that we're seeing that growth in both people and the amount of the contribution. Moving on to contributions by age group. Keep in mind it's the first quarter is all that's showing in the purple bar, but we're on track to continue seeing contribution growth year over year in every age group. And the age group that's seeing the most contributions is 20 to 29. Looking to see how that age of onset changes this, because as everyone knows right now, you have to have had your disability that made you eligible for ABLE by the age of 26. And as of January 1st, that's going to increase to 46. So looking to see if that changes what we see in these bars and maybe how we want to market the program. Because the census is moving forward to look into how we want to change our marketing to different groups based on that age of onset and the different disability types you might see based on that age of onset. I think someone pointed out veterans are one group that we're starting to really look to see how we can assist in opening ABLE accounts. Next slide. So for the distributions by month, as you would assume when you see more people contributing and the contributions going up, we're also seeing the distributions going up. I don't think there's anything that really stands out about this slide. January had we're seeing a slight increase in each month of the first quarter compared to last year. But like I said, we're also seeing an increase in the number of account holders and the amount of contributions. On to slide 8. This is distributions by type. The largest for this is withdrawal at bank. One thing to keep in mind is that that is considered the Fifth Third banking product, and often people will have a debit card and utilize that bank account. So because it's transactional, it makes sense that that's where we're seeing a majority of our distributions from the account. Next up is just qualified withdrawal to an account owner, which I think is what we want to see. Account owners are able to make a choice as to how they spend this money now, as opposed to before ABLE, where this would have just been a monthly spend down.
Can I ask the rollovers
Sure.
out? Where are those going?
Typically, rollovers out are going to go to another ABLE plan, either for that person or a sibling. I haven't looked at these. I think it's just a couple, but I could get exact information to Jeff and Reed if you'd like to see where these rollovers may have gone.
It's small dollars, but I'm just curious where they would be
Nope.
going. It makes sense.
Yes. Usually the reason why people do a rollover is because they move and roll over to another state, or because they roll the money into an account, another account owner. So typically it's a sibling. But let me see what I can get for exact detail. Like you said, it's short money, but let's take a look to see if it's multiple accounts or if there's any sort of trend there.
Thanks.
Just taking a quick note. Distribution by age group. As I said with the other contribution and distribution slide, you're seeing the distributions going up in the groups where the contributions are the highest. These are accounts that are meant to be utilized. So I think in seeing this, we're just seeing a trend that goes along with the contributions. Moving on to new accounts by month. In the month of March, there were 82 new accounts. So, we're definitely seeing an increase similar to the trend in 2024. But in 2024, there were 663 total new accounts. In the first quarter of 2025, we've already seen 208. So I think that looks like a good trend moving forward, that we're seeing an increase, looking like we could have over 800 new accounts by the end of the year based just on the trend we're on from the first quarter. So hoping to continue to see that trend move along in that way. This is just a slide on accounts by disability type. Developmental disorders, including autism, is the highest as far as the disability description. And it really does stand out as how many more there are in that category. One thing to keep in mind, I'm not sure what the developmental disorders are. For HIPAA reasons, we don't ask that sort of question. But autism is considered, regardless of when you were diagnosed, something that a person was born with. So including that group might make that number stand out quite a bit. Once again, it's something I'm looking to see trends in once that age of 46 onset is implemented, to see if we start to see an uptick in any other disability type, once again, to help us with marketing the plan.
Curious, just from a communication perspective, what do we do with the open unfunded accounts? Do we reach out to them or anything like that?
So typically with open unfunded, if the reason that they're unfunded is because they opened the account and they didn't fund it, there is an outreach to see if we can get that account completed. Another reason you might see open and unfunded accounts, probably the majority of the reason, is because the account went to zero. So it had a balance, and because of spending fees on the account, it went to zero. If that happens and the account doesn't get funded again, at 60 days, we send a letter to say, you need to fund your account so that it can stay open. We don't want to keep the accounts open at a zero balance, because a person isn't allowed to have more than one ABLE account, and we don't want to create a disservice to them. So what we do is at 60 days, we send that letter, and at 90 days, the account will close if it hasn't been funded in the full 90 days.
Thanks.
This is just where North Carolina falls in regards to the other states within the alliance. So North Carolina is number 7, but your balance is right in line with Iowa, New Jersey. You guys fall pretty nicely into that top echelon, sometimes for population, sometimes because of the people that you've put on the plan, who are assisting you with that marketing and moving the accounts forward, getting them in front of new people. So that's currently where North Carolina falls.
So what can we learn from Pennsylvania's success here?
They have a huge allocation. So I do think that Pennsylvania has a lot that they can put behind this program. I would have to also look at the population of Pennsylvania, which could have a lot to do with that. But I do think that North Carolina is doing a lot of what Pennsylvania is doing at your state level, as far as getting in front of different groups, trying to create relationships, and then being on the dashboard and being able to open this up to entities. So organizations that care for people who would be eligible for ABLE accounts. So I think you guys are really moving in the right direction with those things. Just to put this out there, because it was part of the earlier discussion, while we have someone who in the past year we have hired just to work on ABLE marketing, and we're hoping that person will get not in front of entities like Krispy Kreme, and the way they're contributing, but in front of entities that care for people with disabilities that would qualify them for ABLE, and opening those doors for you to introduce you to the local affiliate of whatever organization we're working with. So those are ways we're working to help North Carolina, at least as a percentage of their population, creep towards Pennsylvania.
And Kimberly, correct me if I'm wrong, at one point in time, we had a slide in the deck that showed the different resources that states had. And Pennsylvania and Illinois had quite a bit of staffing dedicated to
Yeah,
their ABLE plans. I
specifically to
believe
their ABLE plans. Yeah.
they were up in
And
the double digits of people, and so they are constantly, assigning people to certain partner channels and really working those channels. And I think that is one of the reasons that you see the
yeah.
outsized growth compared to us.
Yeah, and that's what I was speaking of with the appropriation. They have,
Yeah.
they are hiring staff. They're able to do that sort of thing, and increase what they're able to do with people who fully support the ABLE program. But like I said, North Carolina, you have created a new website. You're out there marketing and putting this in front of different partners. So I think you're moving in the right direction, and we might want to find a different state to compare you to, just to see how you're growing and you're improving the plan. Someone has
Katie, I
their
believe
hand
you might
raised.
have had a question.
I did. Yes, this is Katie Boskin. I noticed that Iowa has jumped over our um, account assets in the past few years. I can look at this year over year to see how we're stacking up, and I agree that Kimberly, that we are doing pretty well in the rankings here. I'm just wondering what specifically Iowa did, because I don't know that we want to deploy the resources that Pennsylvania has done, or that we have the capability at this point to spread that cost. So that's my first question about Iowa, or iAble. I think that's Iowa.
Yep.
Okay, all right. And then my second question is it possible for us to look at this slightly differently in terms of what is our addressable audience? How many disabled citizens of North Carolina would be eligible, and are we reaching them? So this slide shows us kind of how we stack up relative to other states, but I don't know if Pennsylvania just has a greater percentage of population that would be eligible anyway. And that would skew these numbers somewhat too. So I'm wondering if we have that data, and if we do have it, is it possible to add that to the slide?
I don't think we have the exact data. Oh, I'm sorry, someone in the room was speaking.
Did that make
Well, I
sense?
was going to say, I have been looking into this a little bit more, and I believe there is some social security data that would allude to some of the eligible populations. It may not capture 100%, but it certainly gives you a feel for um, what those populations are. So, Katie, I can put that together, and we can take a look at that based on what we see in North Carolina. We're just basically scratching the surface.
Appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you very much.
And just to go to your first question, um, Iowa definitely creates a lot of touch points. They send like newsletter from their treasurer's office. They reach out for regular email campaigns. They also, just as a most recent thing, they sent a mailer where they just asked people to sign up who are already eligible to do online enrollment. So they reach out and have a lot of touch with their current account holders, and they also reach out to a lot of entity organizations. So still not sure they're doing a lot more than North Carolina's doing, but those might just be ways to touch eligible populations using your website, using our mail list, email list, things like that, that we might be able to discuss as to continuing that reach for our internal account holders, especially as we move further into the entity and they're seeing multiple people who would qualify for ABLE accounts. Getting into those trusted sources, I think, has always been the best way to promote ABLE. This meeting started with a talk about Medicaid and just the fear, even if it's not a lot of people who are getting that recapture. But the more we can work with these entities, and the reason we hired Lori and our marketing team is those are the trusted source. And we want to make sure that the trusted source has faith in our product and that they are promoting it. And the fact that, you know, now in North Carolina, there are thousands of people who are protecting their assets through the North Carolina ABLE account, and being able to show that to that trusted source, I think, is helpful. So that's what we're seeing on this end.
Kimberly, this is Christy. There are also a lot of plans in the Alliance, or a lot of states that have offered, maybe even last year, they offered bonuses for accounts. So open an account, get some sort of bonus added to the account. So I think that also contributes to a boost.
Yeah, there are states that are able to either on their own because they got some sort of allocation, or through another organization within the state, do have programs where if you open and contribute to an ABLE account, they will match in some way or simply give a exact dollar amount. So there are states that we could speak to where we could see how they developed their program, kind of get a couple of the group together and discuss how they promoted those programs, how they got them open more specifically, because there does need to be the funding there to be able to make those contributions. But it's a great idea.
And one thing that I'd like to add here at the end of Kimberly's comments is I had mentioned at the last board meeting that we had, at the end of October, turned on the entity enrollment platform. So we're now about 6 months into that. We do have four entities fully enrolled and registered on that platform. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's only been 6 months. We're just trying to get some experience under our belt. But we're really, hoping that's going to be a avenue to faster growth. I mean, one of the things that we know from the Illinois program is they have a very strong partnership with their DCFS group that have hundreds upon hundreds of accounts. And so I think as we go down this path and start to build inroads with these entity partnerships, we should hopefully see a little bit faster growth as they'll bring multiple accounts to the platform versus just ones.
Yeah.
There's a single accounts.
Well, because just to speak to that, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting someone, but just to speak to small numbers of accounts of entities on the dashboard, but 4 entities have 24 accounts. So that's a way in which we're making it easier for them to be able to manage these relationships and manage these accounts. We just sent, I believe it might have even been last week, a list of accounts in our system that we believe an entity is managing, so that we can better reach out to those entities and get them on the dashboard and make it so that opening new accounts is just a smoother process. Before the dashboard, every account you managed, you needed a separate login for. And now under the dashboard, this one entity that has 19 accounts, all of them are right there. And they can simply click into with a single sign-on to get the information, to make a contribution, to make a withdrawal, whatever it is they need to do for the people in their care. So as was just mentioned, also, we're now getting DCF organizations, so government organizations that help care for children in foster care. The fewest, once those entities come on, that they are opening is a few hundred accounts. So this dashboard has been a tool that's just really made that process smoother, and has made it so having these ABLE accounts is just a more manageable process for, organizations that obviously are pulled in so many different directions already, making this a little easier. We're really hoping to see some uptake in this in the next year, and we're going to be helping North Carolina to do the outreach and kind of walk those entities through how the dashboard works and how to get on. Any other questions before I have Paul go into the portfolio performance? All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, thanks, Kim. And if we could just head one more slide. Okay, thanks everyone. Good evening and good morning to everyone. So we'll start with the net North Carolina assets as of 3/31. So we saw $34.1 million at the end of the first quarter, which was about 5.6% rise in assets quarter over quarter, and about 26.1% asset growth year over year. So this is a little bit lower growth than what we see as far as the National ABLE Alliance as a whole. They had quarter over quarter growth of about 7.7% and year over year growth of about 30.7%. So what we kind of really see here is that knowing that we kind of group together the top four most aggressive portfolios or highest equity portfolios in the bottom four to see where investment growth might lie within that kind of year over year asset growth. So we know that kind of from our due diligence meeting that North Carolina ABLE has the highest allocation of funds within those top four more aggressive portfolios. So you would expect to see better growth of assets when the equity markets are up, and we see here that the kind of 1 year return, you're getting a better return over those kind of higher equity portfolios. So you would expect a better kind of growth rate compared to the national ABLE overall. But we kind of see the opposite. We see kind of a slower growth of overall assets. So that either means there's going to be kind of less contributions or more withdrawals for North Carolina compared to the rest of the ABLE Alliance. So that's where kind of the struggles might be there. We also see that there's kind of less contributed towards kind of those more conservative portfolios. So maybe people don't understand that you can kind of invest short term and use those withdrawals on a quicker basis. So maybe that's kind of a target area as well to get out that message to kind of those shorter term investors that it doesn't have to be kind of a retirement account. You can kind of put money in there for those to kind of tax efficiencies of it and use that money kind of right away as well. As far as the performance side, it was a tough quarter for U.S. equities, but these portfolios mostly produced kind of slightly positive returns because of the diversification within the portfolios. So bonds perform well, and longer-term bonds outperform shorter-term bonds. So that was one of the kind of changes that we made in the realigning of allocations in December of 2024. So that's something that did help in the quarter, was kind of that realignment to longer or lengthening the duration of the fixed income allocations. And overall, the portfolios are in line with their benchmarks, taking into account portfolio expenses. And the conservative option, which had a kind of a larger variance than the other portfolios because of having kind of the savings account which was kind of a much lower interest rate than we were getting than treasuries. We switched that to a money market account in December as well. So we'll see that generally aligns much closer to what you see to the treasury. So we'll see that variance come back in line as we go forward, and we even saw that quarter over quarter that variance started to come down quite a bit. So we'll expect to see that kind of tightening up going forward. And also, kind of Kim mentioned earlier that money market was added in December. So that's that seventh option that we have for kind of investment. And about 330,000 went into that over the last 3.5 months, which is just less than 1% of the overall allocation. That's generally coming from the checking account option. So people are switching over from that checking account option into that money market option to get some interest on that. Any questions on the plan performance or the allocations?
On the checking account option, is there any way to have an interest yielding checking account option in this plan?
I don't think so. I think it gains about 0.1%, so it's very, very minimal what you get for interest. But that's kind of a reason that we added that money market option to the plan as a savings option, so that people can kind of get at least some interest. And the interest rate for the money market is still is high right now. I think I just checked this morning is annual yield of 4.24%. So they are getting kind of interest in that capacity. So I think that's why people are starting to move from that checking account into that money market option.
Is there a default option here if people are depositing into the accounts? Does it go just into the checking?
I don't believe there is. You'll see that in some other kind of plans, but there's kind of like a QDIA where typically if they don't make an option, it goes straight to a target retirement or checking option. I don't believe there is that option here. Kim, you could let me know if I'm wrong in that aspect.
No, there's not a default.
Okay.
I did just want to point out that when the Alliance was choosing the money market option, they did look into some FDIC insured options as well when making the choice to go with this new investment. But because the checking account is transactional, it's just the type of account that wouldn't bear much interest even if it was outside of ABLE.
Yeah, and as far as North Carolina is concerned, their checking account option allocation is much lower than you'll see for most of the other states involved. I think you're around 23%, where you see typically it's around 28, 29% for the rest of the national label. So overall, this is kind of a more aggressive state as far as allocations. So it's not like money is not being invested and just going into that checking account. Generally people are making the decision to be in those longer term, more aggressive options.
I'd push you on that to say, if we consistently have 23% in the checking account, I understand it's transactional, but our members are leaving a lot of money on the table. And if there's any way we can explore helping them not do that, I think it's worth our time.
Yeah, and we typically see those within ABLE plans that more are in that checking account just because they're paying everyday expenses. Money could be put into invested in these plans and paid out almost immediately if they have day to day or week to week expenses. So I think that's why you tend to see a little bit higher allocations towards checking accounts in these ABLE plans.
And possibly with marketing, we could look into really putting that money market option in front of more people. It's new, but for those people who just park the money in a checking account for safety, the money market option, while not FDIC insured, might be a really attractive alternative. So might be something we want to promote more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move ahead to the next slide, which is the start of looking at the underlying funds. So you can see kind of negative performance for that U.S. equity, which is represented by that Vanguard Total Stock Index. So this is one of the changes that we made in December. We had kind of two underlying funds totaling the U.S. equity market. It's a large cap fund and a mid cap and small cap fund, and we kind of combined those together into one fund, just using the total stock market fund to kind of get it more aligned with what kind of the U.S. equity allocations were. Really, by having those two separate funds, it was kind of really overweight towards mid and small market, and the large caps were doing much better. So this kind of aligns it with more what we typically see within the U.S. market. We also got a little bit of a savings by going to kind of one larger fund here. But unfortunately, it was kind of a negative return for those U.S. equities, but we did get kind of that offset by having a positive returns for the real estate and the kind of international equity funds. So we did see kind of a lowering of interest rates through the quarter, and that was due to kind of probably a higher probability of recession and slowing growth. You tend to see uh, so generally when kind of equity markets slow down, growth slows down, interest rates come down, but interest rates coming down actually helps real estate. Um, and then for kind of the foreign equity side, international equity side, you saw kind of foreign central banks lowering their rates. That kind of spurs growth on the kind of international side. So you saw um, the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, and the Bank of England, both kind of lowering rates. They believe the ECB lowered for the fifth time since June of 2024. So they've kind of been very aggressive in lowering their rates. And then you saw for the emerging markets, um, China and India both lowering rates for emerging markets. So those you saw kind of positive rates there. And anytime kind of China and India kind of have growth on their side, you see kind of positive returns. They make up about 50% of the emerging market index. And in the last fund here, we start to see a little bit of that fixed income allocation with the total bond market. So we had a positive quarter for the U.S. bond market. Again, fearing kind of slower growth, we saw the interest rates come down, and there's kind of an inverse effect to bond prices when interest rates go down. So one of the changes we made in December was that lengthening of duration. And when you see kind of higher rates uh, for kind of the intermediate bond market here, then we'll see on kind of the next page with the short term rate. So that was kind of a positive for the plan here, moving to those longer rates. Yeah, and so this next slide shows kind of the shorter term bonds having a little bit lower return for the quarter of only 2%. But we did see kind of an uptick in the inflation protected bonds. So almost the 3% return there. So as kind of growth slowed down, the market slowed down, the tariffs concerns are kind of bringing on a fear for rising prices, and that obviously leads to people shorter supply of supplies, and that's where rates go up or prices go up, and we see people going into those kind of inflationary protected bonds. So as demand went up for those, the kind of got a positive return of 3% there. And then we saw the high yield, which is the high income fund. That had a positive return, but only 1%, which is a little bit lower growth than we saw in past quarters. The high income fund really kind of follows the equity markets a little bit more. So as we see slower growth from those equity markets, kind of the higher expectancy of defaults or higher risk of defaults starts to come into place, and so that those rates are a little bit lower there than we've seen in the past couple of quarters. And we also saw kind of the international bonds. So as international bonds generally cut rates or international central banks cut rates, you would expect to see a stronger return here. But it was kind of offset by the currency rate of the US going down. So that kind of hurt the performance. So generally, international bonds did well, but the weakening of the dollar kind of offset performance. So that was basically a flat rate for the quarter. And the last one here is that new kind of new money market fund, which goes into that money market option. This is also used within the target risk options. So this is in all seven of most of the target, or the two of the target risk options, the conservative and moderately conservative, and also in the money market option this is used. So a strong yield there, 4.24%, but for the quarter, that's a little over 1% return. Any questions on any of the underlying performance? If not, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Are there, before we go to public comment, any questions, concerns from the committee? Anyone?
Thank you. This is Chris. I did want to mention two things. One is a resource. It's a new resource that's been launched here in North Carolina. It's been available in other states, and people could access this. And what it is it's called Disability Benefits DB 101. And so if you're someone with a disability or you have access to benefits or questions about those benefits, you can learn more online now about that than having to immediately make contact with a benefits counselor. And it can be confusing. Especially for someone who has a disability that might want to be working and is capable of competitive employment, but they're afraid or fear the loss of their medical insurance. And so folks may hang back a little bit about what we've been wrestling with NC Able and folks afraid of a clawback possibly. So similar things. So North Carolina has purchased that and customized it for North Carolina. So anyone can access that. People who have questions, if you have a disability, what it does is provide an opportunity for estimators. You can set up a custom profile, and it's just another tool to help people understand what that pathway could be to employment and other opportunities to maintain benefits or eventually move beyond those. And then, of course, it can put you in touch with a benefits counselor as well for more in-depth questions. And NC Able is in there as a resource, so it's another way to get that information out there. And Patty has the link, and we can share that. We just launched it this week. And there's also an overview. There's information, but also the overview video is available on the department's website for somebody to watch to get a high-level look at what DB 101 can do for North Carolina. There'll be some evolution of that. It's for adults now, but we'll have more information for youth that will come into play, and that'll also be translated into Spanish. That'll be the next phase. So that's a great resource. Encourage everybody to look at that, share that. I think it adds another opportunity that hasn't existed. That'll help people. And the second is I want to thank Jeff. And also I think Sam and Rita have been involved in this. A parent found me directly and was having some challenges for her adopted child to roll a 529 into ABLE. And there were some unique challenges, mainly because of those circumstances, but also how information was being shared. And I think really there was an effort to be very careful with how to guide that so there wouldn't be a risk to possible loss of that information or anyway, the PII side of this. There were some hiccups in the process, and I think that's why she found me. But I know the Accenture team and the team here helped get that resolved and straightened out. It's a fairly unique situation, but also it was a good opportunity to learn and figure out how we might speed those things up in the future if something similar happens. So big thanks to Jeff and you all, as well as the Accenture team for working that out and being responsive to the parent. That's it.
Okay. Let's move to the public comment period. Has anyone signed up for public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider the public comment period closed. The date of our next meeting is Thursday, November 6th at 9:30 a.m. Look forward to that. Unless there are other comments, questions from the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Katie Boskin.
Katie?
Second, Melinda Plick.
This is Claudine Burns.
Linda, you beat Claudine, so we're going to go with you.
Okay.
Let's call the roll, please.
All right, Treasurer Briner,
Aye.
Claudine Burns,
Aye.
and Chris Egan.
Thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye, everybody.
Thank you.